Senator Bernie Sanders taking a swing at Disney CEO Bob Iger's salary. In a tweet the other day, the senator said what would be truly heroic is if Disney used its profits from Avengers to pay all of its workers a middle-class wage instead of paying its CEO Bob Iger $65.6 million, over 1,400 times as much as the average worker at Disney makes. Well, taking aim at CEO pay work is a strategy for Democrats in 2020. Joining us now, former U.S. Congressman Joe Crowley. And Dave Brat as well. Congress people, good to see you, you gentlemen.
Thank you. Morning.
Today, and I want to start with this joke because we go way back. You go back with the show. AOC. We have you to thank for AOC. I mean, it's not your fault, but she's here, and we can see what moving to the left can do in the right context. We've got 20 candidates now. Sort of trying to get some attention, and it seems like Joe Biden has got a pretty big lead. Is this sort of just a way of being heard, or are these serious policy proposals from people like Bernie Sanders, do you think, Joe?
I do think it's interesting. I think that Joe Biden has said that the general election, the fight against Donald Trump, is for the heart and soul of America. I think I'm paraphrasing to some degree. And I think what's also going on here, Joe, is for the heart and soul of the Democratic Party in this primary itself. I do think it's interesting and ironic, and I hope it's not been lost on you. I don't think that Disney or Disney World or Disney Productions could have been produced anywhere in the world except the United States in the post-World War II era of the United States. The freedom that exists here, the free market system that exists here, it didn't happen in China. It couldn't have happened in Russia or in the Eastern Bloc of Europe. It really only happened here and spread from here. So I do think it's very interesting that we're talking about this today. But I will say this. Sanders is right in the sense that what are we doing with that wealth development? What is happening here? 14 times the average wealth of the average worker being held by one individual. You know, go back to post-World War II again, and It's a Wonderful Life. The Mr. Potter who gathers the wealth for the purpose of just gathering wealth. And then the George Bailey, who's working together to actually help people.
I understand it. And now, for a while you had Brat nodding, which is, I mean, that must be anathema to you that he was agreeing. I mean, it was kind of, interesting to see. I get that, Joe. But are you proposing legislation to deal with this? Or are you proposing market forces that somehow make things, I don't know, give more opportunity to other people so they can make more money? Why do we want to bring down Iger, or do we want to bring other people up with opportunity? And is it a zero-sum game? Did Iger take? Is that money that isn't in other people's bank accounts because it's in Bob Iger's bank account? It's not wealth creation?
Well, I do think that there has to be a self-examination that goes on here. That comes with sunlight. That comes with the boards themselves examining what their roles are. And I think that's important. Okay. But I do think it's important for elected officials to nudge them on. I think that's what Sanders is doing here.
Okay. What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, Joe's danced a little bit. He's a good friend of mine, and he's no socialist. And so Bernie, the socialist secret is always they'll talk about one wage and one price that has a little bit of common sense to it. But what they don't tell you is the socialist formula is to take over all prices, all wages, and property rights as the state grows and grows and grows. And so the history of civilization is a history of poverty, right? Every regime on earth was led top down by dictators and thugs for all of human history until you had the Freedom Revolution, free markets with Adam Smith at 1776, and then our founders. And our founders, and this is where Joe and I agree, and I was nodding it, our founders absolutely made it clear that free markets can only exist with a moral people under God. And there's nothing in socialist theory that grounds anything they do in God or first principles. They cannot name their first principles. You will never hear Bernie name those first principles. And so I'm now the dean of the School of Business at Liberty University, and that's what we do on a daily basis. And that's what made this country great. And that's when Joe's talking about that framework up in New York City. We do see a little decline of markets now because people are starting to talk down free markets and businessmen and businesswomen. And if you start talking down the system that made you great, Deidre McCloskey's a double PhD, kind of a Chicago economist out there. Everybody knows her. Huge literature on this. And if you start talking down capitalism, you will experience deterioration and growth.
Well, let me ask you that
we've
question.
fed the world, right? Global poverty
right.
against Bernie has gone down tremendously over the last 100 years.
Joe, here's my question for you, and it's really a question for the Democratic Party right now, which is you have an economy that does seem to be firing on all cylinders. Can the economy and this issue of capitalism and pay and all of these other pieces of it be the platform? In large part because I think even if you believe in all of these pieces of it, the transition cost to the economy is going to be real, right? If Bernie Sanders either wins or even looks like he's about to win, don't you think that most CEOs in America are going to say to themselves, you know what, pencils down, folks, capital improvements, new hires, let's just stop, take a pause, because we don't know what is going to happen if he wins.
Well, I do think, Andrew, it's really a question: who is the economy working for? Who's it working for? Is it working for everyone? And I think that Bernie has an audience there that thinks this economy is not working for them.
But you're not saying that's true, Joe, because you see what's happening. You got 3% unemployment, and you've got wages starting to go up, and people are able to move between better. They weren't. I think it's certainly a lot better than it was in the last 8 years.
It's as much about perception as it is about reality and how things are perceived. I think the hegemony of the United States is being threatened by China. I think that we're finding ourselves in a flux here. Both internationally and domestically, how we rate in the world today is based really by how people feel about that, how they feel about America as a world leader. And I think that's as much under threat right now, internationally, domestically. And I say this within our own party itself. There is a bit of a war going on here. And I don't know how it's all going to settle out. I think this primary that we're into right now is going to have a lot to say about how that all pans out.
That's going to be, I mean, there's some strong-minded individuals that aren't named either Bernie Sanders or Joe Biden. I'm just wondering what this is going to be like to watch, Joe. Mm-hmm. This is going to be bizarre. I mean, they're not going to just roll over, right? I mean, the strong, there's some big egos that are in this race that aren't going to like being at 5%, and they're going to be saying wacky stuff. They already are, right?
Yeah, Andrew.
Yes. No, not Andrew. That's just Joe talking about. You say Andrew's going to be saying stuff. What were you saying, Dave?
No, my point is the perception versus reality is important. Right? I did a PhD in economics. Everybody needs to go back to Economics 101. Free markets have fed the Chinese and the Indians 2.5 billion children of God. Over the last 30 years, billions of people have come out of poverty due to free markets. There's still communists at the top politically, but that's what we've done. So the perception versus reality is real. The Democrats, unfortunately, are creating perception by calling half the country haters. That doesn't do anybody any good. Right, let's get back to a positive vision and grow the world.
Hey, Joe, the election, it's like 2020 is almost around a bend. I mean, get back in there, will you, and save us? Will you do that? Do you need a campaign manager? Get back in there.
Joe, I know who to call. I got that. I got it.
Call me.